Ethanol. Ethanol is an alcoholic hydrocarbon. This is its atomic structure. It is made out of 5 hydrogens, 2 carbons, and 1 oxygen atom. Ethanol can be made from agricultural material that either contains starch. These are products like grains, like corn and barley, or it can be made from sugar. These are products like sugarcane and citrus. In general, ethanol can be made from cellulosic materials. So here is a diagram showing how ethanol can be made from starch-based products like grain. So first, a truck with grains would bring the grains to a storage facility. The stored grains would then be taken to a mill where they would be pulverized into a powder. The ground up grains would then be put in a cooking chamber where water would be added to it to create what the industry calls a mash. An enzyme would also be added here to make the starch into little particles. The mash is then taken to a liquefaction chamber where heat is added in order to make it a liquid and also to remove all the bacteria that were in the grains. The liquefied grains are then taken to a fermentation chamber where yeast is added to the mixture and left to ferment. When the yeast is added in the fermentation process, carbon dioxide is released, and the yeast causes the starch to be broken down into a simple sugar called dextrose. At this point, the mash that was created in this stage would now become a liquid and would be sent to a distillation chamber. After being distilled, the liquid mash would then be taken to a molecular sieve. The reason that this liquid is taken to a molecular sieve is because when we were originally making the mash in the milling and cooking and liquefaction process, we just used whole grains, so we never purified the grains that we were putting in there. And so to separate the liquid ethanol that is now produced from all the mash that is still left, so all the substance that's not required, we use a molecular sieve to remove all of that, and almost a little cup of ethanol is produced at the end of that. Considering that a little cup of ethanol cannot power 20,000 cars a day, the ethanol that is now extracted from the molecular sieve is then denatured. What happens in the denaturing process is a little bit of petrol is added to the ethanol, which gives it more, which makes the quantity of the ethanol more. The ethanol that now has the petrol is then stored in an ethanol storage tank. After that, it is transported and sold to the ethanol market, where petrol stations distribute it. It is then sold to the consumer who buys the ethanol blended gasoline. But in this molecular sieve, and that's how cars get ethanol. Well, yeah, that's how ethanol blended gasoline gets to you. So in a molecular sieve, when you've got the goop that was produced and the ethanol, and after it was purified, there's a little bit of substance left. That substance then is given to farmers that put it back into the ground, and so the cycle starts again. In the fermentation process, carbon dioxide was released because that was a byproduct when the yeast reacted with the starch to break it down into a simple sugar. So all the CO2 that was released is then goes into the bottling or is used to make dry ice for companies. And this process is how ethanol is produced to get to the consumer, which is you. This cycle ensures that the making of ethanol is renewable because it's all coming back to where it started, which is the poultry and livestock where it was taken. Economically, the production of ethanol in a country where oil is such a priority for the for any part of the country to run would be very useful, because then they could manufacture the ethanol in their country rather than importing ethanol like many countries do now. So this would cause economic benefits, saving the country a lot of money in the long run, because they are making their own ethanol, and they're making their own ethanol. The reason that it's economically good is because you can domestically produce it in your country, so there's no import charges, and everything is local, which reduces the cost of the product. Although environmentally, many activists are a little bit scared of making ethanol using food crops, because because of this food versus fuel situation. So environmentalists are afraid that if we use all our food to make a fuel, then we won't have any more food left, and so this is very dangerous for our population. But that is really the biggest factor affecting ethanol production in many countries right now, and so that is how ethanol is produced.